You saw during the lesson on graphing rent data how easy it is to make a basic column chart in Google Sheets, or even something more sophisticated like the combo chart that we use to show not only the median rent levels, but also the upper and lower ends of the error margin for each of those median rent figures. But that kind of a chart doesn't cover all possible scenarios if you want to graph some data in a way that would make it easier to communicate to a reader. So that's what this series of lessons is about. We're going to look at some other ways that you can visualize data in Google Sheets. And I'm going to start with this data right here. This is year-to-year population figures for Rutherford County, Tennessee. You could pull these from the Census Bureau, from the data.census.gov site using the techniques you've already learned. It's a little bit easier to get them from here. This is the website for the St. Louis branch of the Federal Reserve Board. And you could look this data up for any county in the United States, but this is the population data for Rutherford County from 1970 up through, let's see, we've got 2020 here. And to get this data, I just hit the download button here, which will download the data as a comma-separated value file, and then I just imported it into Google Sheets. So I just wanted you to see where the information came from. But once I got it into the Google Sheet, I've got here in column A, I've got the date for each population estimate, January 1st in the given year, 1970, up through January 1st, 2020, right there. And then here in column B, I have the actual population estimate from the chart. You can see that over time, not surprisingly, Rutherford County's population has increased. To make a chart out of this, you do exactly what you learned how to do for the rent data. You start by highlighting all of the data that you want to include, just like that. And then let me actually go from the bottom up here. I'll explain why in just a minute. So I've highlighted all the data, and I'll just choose Insert and Chart. And again, the artificial intelligence that runs the graphing tool in Google Sheets will guess at what kind of chart that I might want. And in this case, it actually guessed correctly. This is what I'm after. I'm after what's called a line chart. A line chart is a great chart for showing how some variable has changed over time. Anytime you're in that situation, like here, we're showing how population increased over time, a line chart's a pretty good bet. Other options would be using something like this this basic column chart, which you saw how to do with the rent data. And you know, it's usable in this situation. You just get you get basically filled in areas below each value, and that's kind of nice, perhaps. But I want to show you this line chart just to show you what else you can do. Let me get back to that. There we go. So that's almost all there is to it. Once you get the line chart generated, you can edit the title up here, just like you learned how to do with the rent data. Let's see. Let's do annual population estimates, and maybe add a subtitle for Rutherford County. Let's see here. Okay. And of course, you can change the color of this. I don't know why they default to that light gray. I really don't like that at all. But we can make it a little bit darker here. But yeah, you can edit things as you like. Some special features that you can do. I'm going to stretch this down a little bit. Remember, never widen the chart if you're going to embed it in your WordPress site. That'll cause you problems. But you can make it as tall or short as you want to. But here's a couple of features that you can use. Let me get that chart editor open again. Let's see. You can, under Customize, and on, is it on Chart Style? Yeah. This sometimes comes in handy. What we're looking at right now is a pretty smooth line chart. The county's population increase over time has been pretty regular. But if you have a really jagged line, you can smooth it out a little bit with that smooth option, and that can look kind of nice. But that's one pretty good option you can use. Let's see. What else do we have? Let's see. That's smooth. Um, let's try. Yeah, here we go. This is a nice feature. Under series on the chart editor, you can pick the series that you want. Series is the term for this line here. You'll see in a minute that you can put multiple lines on this chart. And you can do a couple of things here. Right now, it's just a single line. If you want to add specific stopping points or specific points on that line, you can do that. You can change point size here from default, which is none, to let's start with the 2 pixel symbol. And you might not be able to see it too well. Let me make it a little bit larger so you can see it better on the video. See how it's put these little round dots on the chart, on the line rather. One at each for each year. See if we come out here. See that dot right there? That's the 2015, the 2014, and so on. Those are probably a little bit large for this particular chart, so I'm going to bump the size down some. Let's see. Back to here. And let's go with the 2 pixel here. You can also change the shape if you want. You can go with a circle. That's the default. Triangles can look nice. Diamonds. I'm going to just pick a diamond here just for fun. And you can also, of course, change the color if you want to. If you want like a red or something like that. But you can do whatever you want there. The main thing to see is that you can customize this. Oh, I know what I was going to show you. One more thing. Let's see. Let's get our chart again. Customize and series. This comes in kind of handy sometimes. If you scroll down under series and check this trend line box right here, then you get this this nice straight line. This is the linear regression line, basically. And it's useful in this context because it tells you that if you look at the trend over time in Rutherford County's population growth since 1970, we started out in the 70s a little bit above the trend, and then we sort of dipped through the 90s and up into the through the 2010s, the early 2010s, and then slowly began to exceed the trend. So Rutherford County is now growing a little bit faster than what you would expect it to grow, given the way that it grew. Has been growing since the 1970s. So that can come in kind of handy sometime. Again, that's the trend line option underneath the axis. So that's an easy way to make one quick line chart for one particular variable. Let me scroll out here to the left, or sorry, to the right, get my directions straight, just to show you what you can do if you have multiple things that you want to graph in one of these line charts. So just a second ago, I graphed basically these first two columns, the date and the population estimates for Rutherford County. But now I've added in Williamson and Davidson County. So one thing you could do here, obviously, is you can make one line chart for each of the counties and then just like stack them on top of each other in your WordPress post or something like that. But how much better would it be to put all three lines, one for each county, on the same chart? That would allow you to compare not only their sort of relative population counts, but also their absolute population counts. You'll see here in a second that Davidson County has a much larger population than either Rutherford or Williamson, and but you'll at the same time be able to see how their growth rates have compared over time. So this time, instead of just highlighting the date and the Rutherford County column, I'm going to, again, start down here at the bottom. I didn't go back to this a second ago. The reason sometimes it's helpful to stop at to start at the bottom is if you start at the top and go down, sometimes when you insert the chart, it'll insert the chart down here at the bottom of the columns of figures, and then you got to scroll down to get to it, and then drag it back up if you want to put it up here at the top where it's handier to get to. But if you start at the bottom and highlight upward, then it puts the chart right over here, which is kind of handy sometimes. So again, I've got everything highlighted. Let me just hit Insert and Chart right here. And there we go. It once again guessed that I want a line chart, But you see what it's done? It's put a line on here for each of the different counties. It's labeled them because these labels come from right up here at the top, Rutherford, Williamson, and Davidson. If you include those in the highlighting when you create the chart, it'll stick them up here at the top as labels. And it also assigned a different color to each line so that it's really easy to look here and say, okay, Rutherford's the blue line, so there's the blue line, that must be Rutherford County, and sure enough it is. You can, of course, go back and use the chart editor features to change these colors if you don't like yellow, blue, and red. But the default's not so bad here. Let's see what we can go back and add those trend lines again if you want. Let's see. Let me open the chart editor here, and that's under Customize and Series. And there we go. Let's make sure we're applying this to all series. You can apply the trend line just to one if you want. Let's say I want to adjust the trend line for Rutherford County. I could do that. And you see how it put just the trend line for Rutherford and didn't supply one for Davidson or Williamson. But if I want trend lines for all of them, I can do it all at once by choosing Apply to All Series. And then I can choose the trend line here. And you see, everybody got a trend line. There's the one for Davidson, there's the one for Rutherford, and there's the one for Williamson counties. I can also do other things kind of in batch. Remember how I added points to each line a moment ago? I can do that here as well. Let's go with that 2-pixel size again, and maybe swap out the circles for diamonds. But yeah, you could do those things sort of all at once here, which is handy. All right, so let's see what we got going on. So now, of course, when you mouse over this, you can get details about any particular year's estimate for a given county. If you want to be let your reader be a little bit lazy, you can also do this. Here under Customize, on the very first option, Chart Style, you can choose Compare Mode. That box right there. And here's what that does. Now when a user mouses over a given year, let's get this going. Here we go. So if I mouse over the data point for 2015, notice how I get the data for not only Davidson, which is the line I'm pointing to, but also Williamson and Rutherford counties. And it makes it easier to compare the counties for a given year. So that's kind of a neat feature that you can look at. Why do I have a big gap right there? That's kind of surprising. I have to look at that later. I think I messed up my data here early on. But anyway, you get the idea. This is how you would create a line chart and what it will end up looking like. All right. So that's a line chart. That's the one that you want to use if you want to show the progression of some value, typically over time, a line chart. And you can use create a line chart for just one variable if you want, or you can stack multiple lines on the same chart, which allows some comparison between the variables that you're dealing with. So I'll come back in a minute and we'll look at another class of charts that you would use for say, percentages or maybe categorical data.